Let's go back and dig back into the menu because you shared with me before we started recording that it's more than just kava. So let's share with everybody what exactly the menu looks like and what it treats and how it helps people.
Yeah, so we have when someone comes into a Kava Culture, the staff will always ask them, how do you want to feel today? Do you want more energy? Do you want to relax? And they'll kind of gear their experience based on that. And so we have the kava drinks, which are very social and also relaxing. So some assimilate it to like the first sip is of a glass of wine, perhaps, where it just kind of like relaxes you a little, but doesn't impair your mind. So that's the kava side. So a lot of people will drink that. We drink it out of a shell. It's called a bula in Fijian cultures. And so it's a coconut shell that you would drink. We add a little like, organic coconut creamer to it to make it taste a little better. And so that's on the kava side. And we also make it into mixed cocktails. Then we have kratom, which is an elixir tea leaf from Southeast Asia. We brew it from a crushed leaf or from a powder, which is just fine ground. And we make that into a base. And so there's different variations of that with energy, relaxation, or kind of like mood and joy, where it's just like a balance. And then we have our hemp line now. So that's a little more on the edgier side. The CBD, not so much, but we have the deltas, and they give you a little bit more of a euphoric feeling. And those are the ones that we say, maybe don't drive right after you've had that and don't go back to work there. But the rest of the drinks are all really geared around being able to be productive and health focused. And Kana, actually, I forgot to mention it. We just rolled out Kana, and it also has a little bit of a mood boost in it, and people seem to really like it. We have some drinks on tap, and that's brewed out of our local brewery here in Cape Coral. We bought a microbrewery for beer and we converted it, and that's where we brew all of our tap drinks. And we have ready to drink cans as well that we distribute through that arm. So that's another offering that people can take to go.
Okay, and if I don't have a very sophisticated earthy palate, what could you do for me?
Yeah, so I would say the majority of our drinks are not earthy. Because the base is earthy, we mix them so that they don't need to be. So
Okay.
we do have traditionalists that will say, I just want the base. Don't give me anything else. If you like sweeter, we have some sweeter options. If you like creamier, we have creamier options. And that's kind of how we gear it around. So if you like to drink coffee, do you drink coffee
I
or
do. I drink black coffee.
you drink it black? So you
Yeah.
actually might be able to handle it.
All right.
If you can drink black coffee, sometimes you can drink that kava traditionally.
All right. Well, you shared with me earlier that there's a location in South Tampa coming very soon. So it's like 10 minutes from my house. I will go. I
Yeah.
will check it out.
Yeah. And that's a fantastic franchisee who's there too. So she would love to have you in.
Great. Great. Jacqueline, what's been your biggest surprise since franchising the company? Just, oh gosh, 2 years now.
I would say how quickly it took off. I was thinking we would need to put a lot more marketing dollars. I went to different, franchise expos and did some learnings of, models that we should put together and have really tried to do research. And that was the biggest surprise for us, is that we haven't had to advertise at the level that we were expecting to.
Yeah.
So we haven't had to put a lot of dollars into it, which is great, but it was also surprising because it made us need to hire more staff more frequently to keep up with, how many people were interested. Becoming a little more like vetting of them. I initially thought like, we're going to let everybody in. They love us. We love them. And then we started, peeling back the onion a bit and thinking like, is the marriage? Do we want to marry everybody? I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
No,
makes her
that's
for them and a good fit for the culture, really, because they're such an extension of the brand. It makes such a
absolutely.
difference who is behind the curtain there, really.
Well, welcome to the club because none of us ever know who's the right franchisee when we first start. Of course, we want to let everybody in. Oh my God, you love my concept? You want to be part of my franchise brand? I am so flattered, of course. And then you quickly find out it's like, oh, wait a minute, this really is a two-way street here.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we all go through that. I think back to how you started and how quickly you took off. You kind of defied the laws of franchise expansion in that how well you guys took off. What's been though the biggest challenge for you guys so far? Obviously not finding people. That is usually a big challenge for new franchisors is finding franchisees. But what would you say has been your biggest challenge as the CEO of the company?
Yeah. So I think that a lot of founders in extreme growth go through the same thing. And really, it has to do with the people that were part of the team initially are not necessarily the ones who are still part of the team. They were wearing a lot of hats, and that's not, as we've grown, it's more specialized with the individual. For them to give away their Lego to someone else sometimes just doesn't work. And we've had to part ways. So I think that that's been, probably the most challenging, is some of those employees that were there at the beginning and really had a lot of heart and soul in it that aren't there anymore. But we have a great team that's come on and is very focused and have that passion too. It's just at a different level. And so I think staffing, and as we grow, has been the biggest challenge. That before I was doing this, I did financial planning. So I've always been very good at organization and implementation, but the growth of the company and the staffing has been the biggest challenge. I mean, every quarter we're reassessing, right? At this level, it's like, okay, so this is what we thought we needed. What did we actually need? Do we need more? Do we need less? Where are we at? And I've just gotten used to it now. That's just every quarter that's how it goes as we grow. And I expect that we have very big growth goals. We believe that this concept and this community feel at the Kava bar level should be across the country. It's something that is lacking in communities, of connection of people. And we're really changing the way that Americans socialize, because instead of it being like, hey, let's grab a drink, it still is let's grab a drink, right? You either have coffee or you have wine or, cocktails. And so this is a whole new, way of socializing. And we're very passionate about spreading that.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said earlier, because I thought it was really important for folks to hear that. I'm so glad you identified the staffing issue and took to and did something about it. What I think you found were the employees of Kava Culture early on were not necessarily the same people that can support franchise owners of a Kava Culture Kava bar. And that's a tough transition that we all make as founders of a company. You think, you're bringing people on because they're familiar with it, but it takes a different skill set, and it's going to take another skill set for your company when you're 80 to 100 franchise locations, and you'll be bringing in new voices, new experiences. You'll probably be bringing on people with even more franchise experience than your team has today. And that's just, part of the overall growth and evolution. I'm really glad to hear, though, that you're open to it. It's something you keep reviewing, because that's essentially how you're going to get to that 100 location plus.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's become the strategy side that my role entails now, is primarily the structuring of the staffing and then the entities. So we have we have the product line, and then we have botanical brewing, and then Kava Culture. So we've got kind of the three different companies underneath the umbrella. That's been really fun, actually, for me to puzzle it together and help it grow.
Neat. Well, I'm assuming that you're the first Kava franchise. Is that correct? Okay. Is there anything that's preventing barrier to entry for other folks that might come into the space?
So there is one more that is franchising now too. I think it might be moving from that Kava bar owner to a franchise. It's just so different, right? You when you're a franchisor and that's your primary business model, it's so different than running a couple of Kava bar locations. And I just don't think they've wanted to venture into that. And that's why it hasn't happened. It's also very new. Like Kava bars started around 20 years ago, mainland. Hawaii has had them for a while. People have been drinking kava for 3,000 plus years, and they drink it traditionally, in Fiji with the tribe and the chiefs. And the stateside, it's mainly in Florida, because it started in Florida here around 20 years ago in West Palm, and then there was one in St. Pete, and they've kind of popped up. But across the country, most people still don't know what it is.
Well, and the other thing is that I'm thinking about the growth strategy for your company. And while we don't always recommend, somebody wanted to sign 80 new locations in a year, there is something to be said about, you have the systems and process in place, you have the proof of concept well established, and there's something to be said about speed to market when you're the first. And I'm all for it. It's challenging, I would imagine. When you're the first in a sector, you probably spend more time explaining what the concept is than if you're not the trailblazer and you have other people following, like, oh, I get it, Kava, I know what that is. There's, three of the brands out there. But having the strategy of speed to market in your case, I think it does make a lot of sense. And obviously, I wish you well with that. What's your vision? How big is big for the company, you think? Number of locations?
Oh, it's huge. So we use the VTO underneath the EOS entrepreneurial operating system. We're actually doing our planning for the next year tomorrow. And I'm curious to see what this team is going to say, but right now on our VTO, we have 2,500 franchise locations and we have 500 corporate. I think it's going to shift because I'm not really interested on the corporate side to expand at that level. So we definitely have some giant growth plans. We also are going to go international. It'll be Canada and Costa Rica, and it'll probably be in year like 4 or 5 from now where we start to venture into the different countries. And initially when we started franchising and doing corporate locations, and we will do corporate locations at those first as a test before we will open it up for franchise, it was really where we wanted to travel. So my sister is a big traveler, and we thought, well, let's put these locations that we can strategically go and visit and
Sure.
have our bar there. And we haven't done as much of it as we wanted to. So that definitely is out of the country that we will be placing those.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.